Welcome to the Dylan Experience. My name is Dylan Sessler. I'm your host. Today is episode 27. And before we do anything, make sure you follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching this from or listening. Go ahead and make sure you subscribe or follow. My next guest is a combat veteran and a co-founder of Objective Zero. You can find him at objectivezero.org. A nonprofit organization built to support the military and veteran community with mental health and wellness resources, while also building a network of peer and civilian support ambassadors to prevent suicide. My guest has a very important story to tell, and I'm excited to share it with you. So my guest today is Justin Miller. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So Justin, we connected on Facebook, but there's so much about you. There's so much about your story. Obviously, you're a co-founder of Objective Zero, and that's a pretty big kind of statement to make, because obviously that's a big attempt, right? So I don't think anybody knows exactly what Objective Zero is really trying to do. So why don't you give me an understanding of, one, what is Objective Zero's goal? What's the mission? And then also tell me, following on, what's your story and why do you do it?
Objective Zero is a nonprofit. We developed an app and a web-based platform that allows instant and anonymous connection in a time of need by a touch of a button via voice, video, or text. It's all volunteer ran. So the person you're connecting with is someone who cares. They're not there for a paycheck. They're there because you matter, and they're willing to spend the night with you on the phone if need be. And like our name is, our objective is zero suicides. We got tired of seeing all this awareness being raised, but nothing was being done. There was no changes being made that was out there. It was the VA was being overwhelmed. Everybody's pointing fingers at the VA, pointing fingers at the government, and it's it doesn't do any good pointing fingers at them. They always say, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. And we needed a solution. So my story is actually what started it all. I served in the Army for 11 and a half years, 2 deployments to Iraq for a total of 27 months. And I was medically retired in August 2014. And by Thanksgiving, I was sitting on the edge of my bed with a pistol in my hand. Just felt lost, felt broken, felt like I failed. Felt like everybody was better off without me around. I just felt like I was cancer. You hear all this stuff on the news, like you can't trust the veterans, can't hire the veterans. They can't be trusted with guns. They're dangerous, this and that. And you hear that stuff so much that, you start having these bad days, and it starts sinking in, and you start thinking to yourself, maybe they're right. Maybe my kids and stuff would be better off without me. And then they wouldn't, wife and kids wouldn't have to, deal with me waking up in the middle of the night screaming, or, deal with the short fuse, just all the emotions that we deal with year round. It's world was caving in. Wasn't sleeping, and just tired, man. I just wanted to sleep. It wasn't even processing anything about what it was going to do to my family, because at that time I was like 10 days in of only getting an hour or two of sleep. Just because the nightmares they started becoming so real that I was afraid to go to sleep. I would watch TV for hours, just laying there watching until I would not even know I fell asleep. And next thing you know, I'm up an hour later soaking wet because I just got left behind again in sector. I was just being chased again, except for this time when I turned the corner, instead of seeing my guys, they would have already turned the corner, didn't see me, and I'd get hit or knocked or captured or whatever. and that's always, when I would wake up. And finally, the last night, when I turned the corner and when I looked right, instead of the single gunshot ringing off, hitting the wall by my, about head height, I turned and I got hit. And so I felt like I was awake. I would have swore, I would have put money on it that I was sitting in my bed awake. I don't know if it's just because I was so tired or what, but I was sitting there thinking I was laying in bed, but my vision was blurry. So I started like blinking my eyes, trying to clear it up. And then next thing I know, here I am bound to a chair, sitting in front of a camera, which is what happened to the news reporter in May of 2004. And I got left behind in November of 2004. Before that deployment, we weren't doing nothing. They'd make us, go watch that. These are the type of people we're fighting. Get this in your head. Don't feel bad about stuff. They got to prep you, brainwash, get you in that mind state of to do some of the worst things that somebody could ask you to ever possibly do. And it's just I don't know, it was rough. And the nightmares, I woke up at the end, and it was completed. And I woke up and I couldn't even breathe. I ran to the bathroom, was throwing up. And I came and just sat back on the edge of my bed, and I was like, man, I'm done. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I said, I just want to go to sleep. I just want these nightmares to stop. I grabbed my 45, and I was sitting there, and the first thought that went through my head is I'm not going to pull this trigger twice. So I checked the chamber, and it was empty. So then the next thought that went through my head was, man, if I rack around in the chamber, it's going to wake my wife up. She's going to ask questions, and I would have to talk. And I didn't want to do that. So I put the pistol away. Thank God that logic is what went through my head. Because just minutes prior, I wasn't even thinking about how I was going to destroy my whole entire family, wake her up to the worst nightmare ever. It wasn't even going through my head, and I tried to do what we've always been told, suck it up, drink water, drive on, figure it out. And so I went and sat on the couch and I just tried to deal with it. But every time that nightmare would come back, it was so real that I would start hyperventilating. And I would just like start, just having a meltdown. And about the fifth time, I finally called the VA and I'm like, look, I said, about killed myself this morning. I said, I need help. I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I said, doesn't make sense. I feel lost. I feel broken. I don't know. I said, I'm not sleeping. And she's like, well, are you suicidal right now? I said, well, no, right now I'm on the phone with you trying to get help. And I said, but another night like last night, I said, I'm done. I can't do this no more. So she put me on hold and scheduled me an appointment for 2 days later. And I'm like, holy shit. I just told you I couldn't handle a night. So you gave me 2 nights to call bullshit. I said, thanks a lot. And I just hung up. And, nobody checked on me. I don't even know. I didn't go to the appointment. Nothing. And like maybe a minute later, I get a text message from, at the time he was a major, but he was in college, and he and I served together my second deployment. He was the mortar lieutenant, and me being the scout team leader, moved over to the sniper team leader. We did a lot of missions together. So him and I became close. He's been like a mentor, but we hadn't talked in probably a couple years at this point. And so I was like, with him dropping that text message, within a minute of me hanging up the phone with him, with a text saying, hey, I'm trying to put together a course. I'm at Georgetown and I'm trying to develop a course for our future leaders that will help try to identify commonalities in our today's warriors. Are there certain traits that that we can identify that is, you know, that all these people that joined during a time of war and re-enlist over and over during a time of war. And I'm like, well, hell, at least I can do that. At least I own this. Even if it's the last thing I can do, I can try to help my country out. And so get on the phone with him, and he's talking to me. And that was, come to find out, that was just his icebreaker to get me on the phone. And he just asked me, he's like, how you doing, man? I said, well, not so good. He's like, yeah, I kind of noticed. He goes, man, I really hate to ask this, but you thinking about, killing yourself? And I just laughed. I was like, man, you have no idea. I said, if my pistol was loaded this morning, we wouldn't even be talking right now. And he had me on the phone. We sat there and talked for like 6 hours. Got me to figure out what I was feeling, why I was feeling it, had me talk it out. And just having him there to listen and have that open ear to just hear the struggles that I was dealing with, and be able to say, yeah, I've dealt with some of those also. It's common. It's just, but nobody wants to talk about it. Your story, he's like, your story is going to save lives, dude. We need to get your story out there. And at the time, the only thing I thought I did was, for like the month of December of '04, SEAL Team 3 attached to us. And we ran missions with, Team 3 and Chris Kyle and them, and between Fallujah and Ramadi. So I was like, that's all I've done. I said, other than that, I just did my job. I don't got a story. He's like, no, man, your story's gonna change lives. And after about 6 hours, he kind of explained to me. He's like, well, why'd you serve? And I said, well, I serve because I love my country and I want to protect the ones that I love. And he's like, all right. He goes, well, think of it this way. He's like, when you served, he said, the government paid you, right? I said, well, yes, sir. He goes, okay. He goes, now that you've been out, he goes, the VA's paying you, right? I said, yes, sir. So he's like, well, think of it this way. Think of it as the VA is paying you to take care of your brothers and sisters. And right now, he goes, your story could start saving lives, and we need to get this out there. He goes, you still have a purpose. He said, your mission has just changed a little bit. He said, we're losing, at that time, it was 22, it was what everybody was saying, it's 22 a day. And it's like, so we started doing research, figuring out what could be done. Got my story written and published, and then a guy offered us an app. He said, I got this idea and I want to give it to you guys. I just want to see where it goes. I don't want anything from it. And his idea, it was originally like Yelp, where it'd be for a veteran to be able to go get help if he was somewhere, that he's not aware, used to. Like doctors that work pro bono in the community, therapists that are right there locally that would just allow you to jump in for a, appointment, things like that. But while doing research, we found out that most veterans that die by suicide usually do it within the first 5 minutes. So we're like, we don't have time for somebody to get on an app to try to find a place, try to get on the phone, try to get an appointment, be put on hold, sent the voicemail. Like, we need something like now, And I said, nobody trusts anybody anymore because they tell us, go to war, we'll take care of you. And then we get back and they're like, yeah, we'll take care of you. One problem at a time. Oh, that problem took 2 years. Oh, that problem again is going to take almost 3 years. It just sucks the life out of you. And so we decided to, instead of pointing fingers, to do something about it. And we decided to make this app anonymous. We wanted to make it user friendly. We're like, the person who's reaching out for help is the only one that matters. It doesn't matter if you and I are comfortable, but you know, private snuffy over here who's calling out for help, that's the only person that matters who they talk to, and they should have the right to choose. Like, they should have the ability to choose. So we made it so you could filter it, by branch, by MOS, whether active, reserve, guard, what deployments you were on, whether you went to the Naval Academy or West Point, narrow it down, male, female, close, far away, whatever. It's like we wanted to make it so the person reaching out would connect with somebody that they thought they would, more likely connect with and bond with immediately. And so, yeah, we just spent hours and hours. Every week we would jump on a call for like 1 to 3 hours, and there'd be 6 of us. And we'd throw all of our ideas and all of our loopholes that we could find together. And then at the end of the call, we'd be like, all right, brainstorm for a week amongst yourselves, and then we'll come back next week and throw all of our stuff together again. And just kept doing it, whereas we didn't have a choice, couldn't stop. We just listened to the people when they'd say stuff. We'd take their criticism and we would, use it. We wouldn't get it sting a little because we always think that we would have a good idea. But when somebody comes to you with a better idea, it'd be stupid not to use it if it's going to save a life. And that was our thing, is if we can just save one life, then it's all worth it. So, yeah.
It's a lot of relatable feelings in there. I want to kind of go back to your story because I've seen it. I've read the article that you sent me. Would you mind kind of going back to that and kind of giving us like what happened to you? Like you were talking about being left behind. What happened there? Like, what was that moment for you?
So I was the lead truck gunner, and we just came out of the gate, and we weren't even 200 meters up the road, maybe 3 at the most, and got hit by an IED. And this was back in 2004, and we didn't have the armor. We had a turret shield in front of the 240, and the roof of the thing, stood up, so we had a plate behind us and a shield in front of us. Our floors had sandbags on them, and we had steel plates bolted to the freaking side of our vehicles. And and our 155 goes off, and I come to with my platoon sergeant shaking me, asking me if I'm okay. And back then, we didn't. I wake up, I'm like, I'm coming to, I'm looking down, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. There's no blood. I must be fine. I was like, but my head is head's killing me. He's like, well, all right, come down out of the gun. He said, you're gonna drive. So I switch out with our driver, and so now I have his M4, because back in the day I didn't carry an M4. I had a 240. I had one magazine on my chest, and that was in case if somebody down below me needed it, I could drop one down for somebody else. But I didn't have what I did in the second tour. I didn't have a combat load, so I had no more than 60 rounds on me with my driver's M4. And we go back to the IED site, and as we're pulling in, there's an IP truck sitting there, and my platoon sergeant, tells me to go, let's go talk to them and see if maybe they saw something. Well, as we started approaching them, they put it in reverse and hauled ass. So here we're chasing them down the alley in a truck that, sounds like it's going to blow up on 40. And they're in the little freaking 1500 hauling ass through the alley. And I'm yelling at my gunner to freaking open up on them. Platoon sergeant's telling me to shut the hell up. I'm like, they're gonna get away. He said, well, we'll figure it out. We'll find him. So they turn left, and by the time we get up there, as we're turning left, we see him hand off a camera to a kid. The kid runs left, and they go to the right. Well, my platoon sergeant said, "Get the kid, get the camera." Well, I heard, "Get the kid." One of our team leaders in the back thought he heard, "Get out and get the kid." And so he went to get out, and with having the sandbags there in the rifle rack, his foot got stuck. I didn't even know he opened the door, and I took off down the alley. I mean, I just got blown up. I can't hear hardly anything anyways, until I find out that I'm dragging our team leader down the shit creek, down the alley. Like dislocated his shoulder, and I think he had to get stitches in his elbow or his knee or something like that. Thank God that was the only thing that happened. But then as medic was working on him, we were searching the area for the kid, and I found the camera sitting in this courtyard. There's a courtyard that had these blankets strung across, and the wind just happened to blow through where the top blanket moved and the bottom one didn't. And I looked down and just seen a camera sitting there, and I'm like, holy shit, look at that. So we get the camera, call it in the house, find out that the husband was just arrested by us the week or two prior for, being involved with IED emplacement. So we go to the IP station to try to find the guys that were driving the truck. Long story short, on that, the commander, in-sector commander comes in. He's in a Bradley, and he says, "All right, we're going to go back to that house, raid that house." He goes, "I'm going to lead the way since I'm in a Bradley, got more armor, and from here, give me one of your guys that knows what house it is." And nobody wanted to volunteer, and I didn't care. At this point, I already knew that I was just a dead man walking. You're either going to make it or you're not. There's no point in thinking about it. And I'm like, well, hell, my brain's already scrambled. So I said, might as well go. So I jumped into Bradley, and this is where the mix-up happened. Now, after I've had time to think about it, so I'm now in the Bradley. I go down, lead. We get to the house. They follow behind us. We're raiding the house. As we're leaving the house, the in-sector commander says, "All right, I'm going to go, and I need to jump back and rotate out to get pictures of the house, show we didn't destroy it, and then, continue mission." I'm like, all right. So I'm like, all right, I got my camera. So I turn around. I'm going in there. I take pictures. And as I'm going up the steps, I go up the first set of steps, and I hit the landing. And as I turn, my foot hits the first step on that second run, and the lady comes running in the house screaming. And you can imagine what a frantic lady sounds like, who's, pissed that we just raided her house. Plus, we just threw her husband in prison. And I mean, her house is a wreck. Blankets are all pulled off the shelves, everything. So she's upset. Then she sees me, and it goes from a frantic screaming, like an emotional crying, to face tightens up, eyes get dark, and just like if she could have killed me with her eyes, I would have been dead. Because I mean, she just turned dark, and she started yelling, and it went from like that high-pitched frantic yelling to like this really deep, like almost freaking demonic stuff. It still creeps me out how much the change was. So at that point, I'm like, she shouldn't even be in here. This isn't right. I was like, get the upstairs. I go down the steps, and so walk past her. There's three guys. At that time I was 6'3", 220. And there's three guys that come through the gate that were my size or bigger, and 20 years old. think I have 4 trucks, 4 machine guns with 4 guys in each truck there to back me up. So as I'm walking out, and those 3 guys, same thing. They just have that pure evil look where they're just like staring me down, trying to kill me with their eyes. And being young, I was cocky. I shoulder checked them. I was like, "What the fuck you looking at?" As I put my camera away, and that's as I came out the gate, I put my camera away and I looked, and that's when I'm like, "Holy shit! There's nothing but Iraqis. Not a single truck, American, nothing in sight." And it looked like a concert. I mean, imagine a neighborhood and the house just getting raided. Every single neighbor, every kid, everybody wants to come see what's going on. And there, here I am with my driver's M4 with no more than 60 rounds and 100 plus people trying to get around me. So immediate thought goes into my head: weapon on semi, trucks are facing that way, MSR's behind me, base is that way about, quarter mile, half mile or so. I said, I'll run back if I got to. So put you back up against the wall, make sure nobody can grab you from behind. This was all just like within a split second just happened. And I cut across the wall and I started facing this way. And, they teach you that to get fire superiority. Well, when you only got 60 rounds, you just want to get the first aggression. And so I'm like, I feel sorry for that first guy that came towards me, but I mean, I hit that dude so hard that my rifle, that when I pulled it out, like there was still an indent where his clothing was kind of like pushed into his chest. And as soon as I hit him, he just buckled. And then I turned around because I could hear him coming from out the gate. And that's when I turned and I hit the first one that came out the gate. And I just kept, as soon as I hit that first guy, they kind of backed off. And I just kept hitting people. If they came within range, I hit them. And I don't know how much damage that would do, but I can't imagine it being very pleasant. But if I would have shot, I would have been overran. I didn't have enough rounds to take out half the people who was there, so I'd have been screwed. And then I would have let everybody in the whole freaking area know where I'm at. So, I ended up having to run, fight my way down about 3/4 of an alley or block. So I hit an alleyway and then just hauled ass. And I could hear him running behind me. I didn't realize how many or anything. Just didn't care. When your adrenaline's going, you're going. And get down, hit a T intersection, and as I'm hitting it, I look left and there's nothing. As I look right, about 2 blocks down, the last gunner saw me as they returned and yelled for him to stop. And as I turned, a single gunshot rang off and hit the wall. And I kind of ducked down, and I was expecting more gunfire. So I mean, I was getting ready to throw myself down and turn around and start firing. But when I ducked down, I realized the crowd of people, about 10, 15 guys or whatever, came running up. As soon as they came around that corner and saw 240 pointed at them, they just threw their hands up and they just stood there and stared me down. So yeah, that was a nightmare that I relived over and over for years. And when we got back from that deployment, we were told that PTSD wasn't real. That only the weak-minded, the freaking cowards, the people trying to get out, the ones that didn't want to, keep up to their end of the contract, they're the ones that have PTSD. It's not real. It's all in your head. It'll go away. When I flipped out on a major who told me he understood exactly how I felt and knew what I meant and what I was saying, and I looked at his sleeve and realized he's never left the country, and I'm an E4 flipping out on a major, and nobody says anything but laugh as I'm walking down the hallway. And I was a top person, one of the top people in my battalion. I was known, and they just thought it was funny, because being a combat vet and him being a garrison, basically a doctor that just got, pinned officer rank because of his education. But then I get a call saying I need to go to behavioral health. That I asked what it was for, and they said because I had PTSD. And I was like, what the heck's that? And they're like, well, it's because of your nightmares, and and you said you struggle going out because of all the times that you actually felt your life was in danger. And you actually felt like you could die. It's like, you need to come and start seeing a therapist. I was like, okay, whatever. I go and tell my leaders, and they're like, what's up? And I said, hey, say I got this thing called, BTS something. And they're like, whoa. They're like, what do you want to do with your career? I said, man, I love the Army. I love what I do. I said, this is what I'll do the rest of my life. I want to stay until they tell me I'm too old. And they said, well, then you do not go to that appointment. I said, why not? If you go to that appointment, your career's over. They said, you'll be done. You're non-deployable. You'll be out within a year or two. He said, and that's it. You'll be back home living life again. And there was no way that was happening. I joined the Army in a time of war to get away from my hometown. If I went back home, I would have died. When I went home on leave, I already knew I didn't fit in. All I did was try to numb myself because all my best friends all just kind of was awkward around me because our level of experience and our level of appreciation of life is at a completely different level. These people have no idea at this age. They're still bitching and complaining because mom and dad didn't fill up their gas tank, and are yelling because they're on playing video games too long or didn't buy them the new video game. And here we're worrying, did somebody call, our brother's mom for Mother's Day, or wondering if the wife or the children are doing okay, of the guy who you hear tell my wife and kids that I loved them. And, so I was like, I felt more comfortable in Iraq than I did back here. Because here, nowhere we went, we didn't fit in. We would go anywhere, parties, bars. We'd end up getting in fights because our sense of humor and our everything was just completely different. And people would run their mouths, and we just didn't take it. We were looking for that rush, and we had no fear. We just made it back from combat. What can hurt us here? Like I went and bought a crotch rocket. Never rode a bike before in my life, and go and buy a freaking 05 ZX6R, and first night on it, out there riding between semis on the highway doing 150, 160 mile an hour, just trying to get that rush of what it actually is like, knowing somebody's trying to kill you and hunt you down. And so I was like, however, what do I do then? I said, how do I do this? And they said, well, do what we do. Just grab some beer on the way home and just drink some until you get tired and fall asleep. Well, it took a lot of beer. We're professional alcoholics in Korea. So 6-pack turned into a 12-pack, turned into a case real quick, and then turned into bottles, turned into showing up to formation drunk. And as long as we could perform PT, nobody cared. As long as we could stand up in formation, and even if we couldn't, hey, all right, guys, tighten up formation a little bit, shoulder to shoulder, let's go, hold them up. And that's how we did it. We did what we did what we had to do to survive. Because, since the friggin' original time of war, our country has done nothing to improve the mental health and in preparation for PTS. They've always avoided it and pushed it to the side and said it's not real instead of confronting it. And here we've spent trillions of dollars upgrading all this other stuff, all this armor and equipment, and done nothing for us here. We had to hide. We had to pretend it wasn't there. And it just got worse because you jump into marriage. I jumped into marrying my high school sweetheart. Thank God she's still she's still with us today. Still stuck with me today. But I jumped into marriage because she was the only normal I knew. I'm like, well, if I marry this girl and I have normal around me again, I'll become me again. I'll be the normal that I'm used to. What I didn't realize is it'll never be that normal again. You can't see and hear and have to do the things we did and ever expect to be able to come back and see things from the same, innocent eyes that we had.
Right.
So yeah, we just drank, took pills. All they did, they just numbed you.
Yeah.
Until you deploy again. And then it became an addiction. It became, I'd rather stay. I mean, I tried to re-enlist to extend for a whole year over there, my first tour. But they wouldn't let me because I did almost a year in Korea straight into a year over there. And I couldn't do it back-to-back hardship tours. So I had to go back for a certain period of time before I could come back. And then I got on recruiting orders the second time, and I tried to fight them. I tried to fail recruiting school. I showed up drunk every single day, would tell them, would not even try. I told them I was going to fail it, and they're like, no, you're not. I said, oh, yeah, I will. They said, nope, you will not fail it. Sure enough, they didn't let me fail it. They pushed me on through. And then I went to recruiting and tried to fail there, too, because I was a new recruiter. I wanted to go to combat. I wanted to be killed. I wanted the suffering and the pain to end. And I'd much rather be killed in combat and be recognized as a hero, my family be able to be proud of what I did. And, to have to sit there and think of my kids, knowing that I was a statistic, that I quit. That was my way of suicide by cop, I guess.
Yeah.
And instead I had an NCO who I called him out because he converted after one deployment from infantry to a recruiter, and he told me I should do the same. And I said I didn't join the Army to sit behind a desk. I joined the Army to kick indoors and, play with guns. And so he said, no, I'm not. Basically, shouldn't have. Yeah, I opened my mouth hoping that he would kick me out, and instead he was like, okay, there, guy, I'll make sure you stay out here, because the new recruiter program, you fail, it doesn't hurt your career. They just send you back to your job. But after the new recruiter program, you fail then you have a failing NCOER and basically screws your career. So he fed me enough contracts. He would put them in and put my name on them, just enough to get me to the board. And I had 3, I think, in, and he had me on the computer for having 3 more lined up that were all made up just to keep me out there. And then tried to make, the whole time, that whole year and a half, I was just suicidal. I just wanted to die. Because every day I was in so much pain. I had nobody to talk to because I was told to hide it. I was told it wasn't real. So therefore in my head, I'm like, well, everybody's telling me it's not real. So they're telling me it's only for the weak. You're not weak. I'm not weak. I'm one of the best out here. I made rank. I went to freaking SODIC with 10th group. They sent me 2 out of my battalion. I was one of them that they sent to go do the training with them. I was like, I'm known. I'm not weak. There's no way that I could have this. So there's something wrong, but I couldn't figure it out. And the civilian doctors, they didn't know how to handle me. I said, you know what it's like to have a bomb blow your truck 6 feet in the air? She's like, oh my God, no. I said, I didn't think so. I said, that's what I've had to go through. I said, so I don't even know, I can't even explain to you the pain that I'm in. I was like, I heard every day, all day. Oh, here's muscle relaxers and here's painkillers. Take as needed. Wake up, take 2 muscle relaxers, 2 painkillers, and every couple hours I'd take 2 more. I'd take a month's worth in 10 to 12 days. Call her up, hey doc, I need more. Like, well, I just gave you that like a week or 2 ago. You said take as needed. I told you I'm in a lot of pain. Okay, and we'll just refill it. And I look back and I'm like, man, I don't know how I even did it. I don't know how I functioned and drove and didn't kill somebody because I was just numb all the time. And finally, we got a new station commander, and I snapped on a kid. That's when he says he's wanted to realize, he's like, man, you have issues. You know, you got some demons you're fighting. And he says, if you go get help, it's not going to hurt your career. I'll protect you. If I have to refer you, it's going to be command referred, and everybody's going to know about it. He says, so I'm giving you the opportunity to take care of yourself. And they just put more pills in me. And they diagnosed me with ADHD combined type, severe depression disorder, survivor's guilt, you know, and just gave me some more pills, antipsychotics now. So now I'm taking painkillers, muscle relaxers, antipsychotics, and Ritalin. So it's just a pill cocktail, and they just kept adding stuff on. And, you know, it just, I don't know, it got to the point where I knew the only way out was I had to finish recruiting and I had to deploy again. And Afghanistan was my only way out. That was my last opportunity of being killed over there instead of giving up. And I was finished top recruiter. They wanted me to convert. They wanted me to stay out there, and I said, no. I said I'd rather go to war. So I left. Went down to Fort Stewart, trained with my guys for a year, and then ruptured a disc in my back, which just led to my career ending. Which I'm like, dang, I gave up promotion E7 to sit behind a desk where I could have finished my career, where I was actually doing something I was good at. But because I was in such a bad state, I gave all that up to come here, destroy myself for a year to not even be able to do what I wanted to do anyways. And they yanked me a month prior to deployment. And I just went into a spiral. On the way home, I grabbed a freaking fifth of Maple Crown Royal and a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper. And I had about half the bottle gone before I even got to the house. And I finished the bottle before the night was over because they just completely took my whole world away from me. And that was one of the lowest points, because at that point I said, man, I just completely failed at everything. Even the good that I had going for me, I said, I threw it away and failed at this. I'm like, so I did it all for nothing. And my wife kept telling me I should go get help, and I couldn't, because I knew if I did, my career was over. And thank God my wife found me one day in the garage about 4 o'clock in the morning. I was drunk with my pistol sitting on my workbench. And she said, you deserve better. You need to go get help. She said, you know, we deserve it. I deserve, the kids deserve it. She goes, most importantly, you deserve it. You earned it. She said, who cares what they do? They kick you out, so be it. She goes, but what good's the Army if we don't have you? She said, we'll figure it out. So I went and I got help, did 35 days inpatient, and came back October 1st of 2013. And that was the first time I ever talked to my wife about what I was dealing with. Other than that, she had no clue. And she never knew about me being left. The only thing she would hear was during my drunken parties with my infantry guys when we'd be trashed, you know, reminiscing war stories and stuff. But she never actually knew of, you know, me being left behind and the kids that got killed. And yeah, so that whole time, what I didn't know is she was trying to understand how she could help. But in her head, all she had was her imagination. So it was tearing her up just as much as it was me, because she just didn't know. And that's probably one of the most important things that I've learned is, we were told what happens here stays here, but we do that and it's just going to keeps killing us because we allow those stories to keep control. But the more we share those stories, the more we share it with our loved ones, the more they understand, the more they can see and feel our emotions. They start understanding why we have flashbacks, why our mood will go from laughing and having a great day to sitting over in a corner wanting to punch a hole in the wall over, a mom screaming at a kid or kids screaming and crying, and all of a sudden you're just back seeing a freaking crowd of women and children laying all over the ground because a car bomb just went off. She didn't understand that. So in her head, every time I was having issues like that, she thought it was her fault. My kids thought it was their fault. I didn't know that. I thought they just assumed I was messed up and just understood that it was me. But yeah, man,
It's heavy stuff.
yeah, it's been challenging. It's been a fun ride.
How do you see it all now? Obviously it's been what, nearly 12, 13 years since you have really been anywhere near that. What do you look back to now, and what do you see for yourself? What do you see of that young man that was dealing with all of those things and being told to feel a certain way or to hide it? Like, what do you look back and see?
I just see a problem that needs to be fixed, is what I see. I see something that the more I've been out here and the more I speak and the more stories I hear, is more common than I ever thought. And, it's going to take a culture shift. It's going to take our whole culture changing to make this change. It's our leaders never talked about it. And according to us, and my leader was a badass dude. He never had any issues at all. He was squared away 100% of the time. And so therefore, that was high expectations for me. That's who I looked up to. That's what I was supposed to be like. That was my role model. He's saying, if he's saying this stuff ain't real, then obviously it must not be real. And it's going to take our leaders talking to their guys, telling them about their stories of a time of suck. Hey man, when I was a private, my freaking came back from deployment and found out my wife done drained my bank account, left me, kids are gone, and I have an empty house with nothing in it. And talk to them about what it is you went through, how you dealt with it, what you did right, what you did wrong, what you wish you could have done better. Looking back, start that now, so our privates and our young airmen, our lower enlisted, start feeling okay and comfortable with coming and talking to us. That's what our job is, our leaders. We see an issue, we see a problem, our job as leaders are to fix it. Not just sit there and try to shove it underneath the rug and act like it doesn't exist. That's what we need to do. That's what I look back and I see that we have a military right now that's full of a bunch of people like myself that were privates going to war, that were forced to just not talk about it. And that is what has changed so much about our military, because so many leaders got promoted so fast because of the casualty rate. It'd be nothing to see sevens making seven in 7 years. And that wasn't heard of before. It doesn't happen very often, and it was happening all the time. We'd have E6s running platoons, E5s as squad leaders, and so you got these guys that just got promoted way too fast, that they were brought in when the hazing was there. So it's just, there's a whole mentality change that needs to happen. And it starts with our leaders talking about it and realizing that we are the only ones that can fix this problem. Nobody else is going to fix it for us, because nobody else understands and nobody else really cares at our level.
What, when you offer up that idea, I think one of the consistent responses is, whether it's from the old guard or, the people who have been kind of indoctrinated into that system, the idea of you create a softer military. What do you say to that idea when that comes out? Because I'm sure, with you telling your story, and I know I've been there. I talk, literally what I talk about on TikTok is emotions, feelings. I've been in the military for 14 years now, still going. I have these conversations that you're talking about with my guys. Like, at some point, people come out of the woodwork and say, you're making a softer military. You're making people softer. Oh, no wonder, that never would have happened back in my day. Like, what do you say to that?
They need to freaking look at themselves in the mirror and reevaluate themselves, because I came back from recruiting. I was a freaking weapons squad leader, and I had one of the baddest squads out there. I didn't have issues. I didn't have to smoke my guys, because the first time I went out there, first freaking field problem, I was the MCO. I see it was thrown out the night prior to prep. They dropped us, me off with like 10 other guys. They said, all right, we need 500 sandbags filled before y'all can go to bed. And they dropped us off at like midnight. Well, I dropped my stuff. I grabbed my shovel and I go over, and I start digging. And I look around and all these guys are just looking at me. I'm like, what the hell y'all looking at? I was like, fill some damn sandbags. Well, damn, Sean, we ain't never seen these six on there filling up sandbags. Like, usually they're just sitting out there over the side yelling at us. Well, I want to get this thing done. I would not ask you to do anything I wouldn't do, and I'm not going to have you do anything that I'm not going to do. So let's get this done. Let's work as a team and knock it out. And that right there, that set the stage that, man, this guy's respectable. This guy ain't just a dude that's trying to lead by fear. A true leader doesn't need fear. He needs respect, love, wanting to impress and wanting to gain that person's respect. That's a leader. What type of leader is, oh man, I better do it or he's going to smoke the shit out of me. He's going to take my freaking weekend away. Oh my God. Yeah. What type of leader is that? People are going to do what you want out of fear, and then the shit hits the fan. They ain't really going to have your back. They can be more worried about themselves and the buddies to the right and left, not their leader. But you earn their respect, man, you can have a soft military. You have a military that is going to be the leaders. The leaders are what make the military. So if they think it's a soft military, then guess who's the soft ones? They've made it soft because they have gotten lazy. They have not wanted to do their job, so they've allowed the younger ones to do the job. So therefore, it's a soft military, because they're like, hey, you should go smoke that guy because he didn't salute that lieutenant. All right, go take care of it and let me know how it goes. I'll be in the office. It's just, that's the problem. People are going to hate me. I know it. People don't like to hear it, but hey, the truth hurts.
Yeah, not here. Like, I agree with you. Right? Like, that's when I came into the military. I came in around 2008. I think that mindset was still there, but it was, I think, fading because everybody was just exhausted, at that point, like just the rotation cycle and, people constantly training, never a moment like, and I was National Guard. So it was, we have even less time, like we have our drill schedule and we pack everything into that drill schedule, but time to, understand each other. It was,
yeah,
you need to get all this done and you don't have fucking time to talk to people. You don't have time to take care of problems, right? Like if a soldier has a problem, you don't have time to take care of it. You know where that time is? Civilian time. So whenever you need to solve problems for a soldier, you need to do it um, on your own time and not the military's time, because we can't afford to have problems with soldiers. Um, and that was, you know, one of the things that, like, when I listen to stories like yours, and it just reminds me that if you don't create as a leader the environment to actually have the conversation, you're creating that environment within the soldier. And so he's gonna perspective is a lonely fucking place. And if the only perspective you're allowed to think about is your own, and you're forced to stick within that box, well, guess what? You've disconnected from the people that can actually support you and help you and take care of you in a time of need. And if you're not actively engaging in that connection with other people that can help you and support you and take care of you, guess what? It's going to end up like you and me, right? Because we've both been there. You've been there with a gun, so have I, right? Like that's why my whole platform on TikTok and why this podcast exists, because I'm also tired of the problems. I focus more on the civilian side than I do the veteran side, because for me, the problem existed far before I ever joined the military. I joined the military to die before. It was a preemptive thing. It was like I lost my dad to
Childhood
suicide.
trauma.
Yeah, I lost my dad to suicide at 6 years old, and I carried that with me. Right, I carried that into my military career. Never talked about it. Never had any conversations about it. And deployed in 2012 to Afghanistan. Came home, and that was like worst time of my life when I came home. Because I had tore my ACL. I was thinking, like, coming home from my deployment, I was like, I want to go to special forces. Like, I'm tired of staying around Wisconsin and doing the National Guard thing. I want to do something, right? I want to go back to war, because I didn't get what I wanted. And 3 days after I tore my ACL, my career was over. That's what it felt like. But I stuck with it. I kept going. I was sent down to Fort Knox to do surgery, recover, overcame it, tore my ACL a year later, almost exactly a year later, my other one. And then a year after that, I did it again. So in 3 years in a row, I tore 3 different ACLs. It was just like, what the fuck, and 2015, that third ACL, it was just like, the fuck, I mean, there were so many other things coming at me at the time. But it was the same thing. I just felt all the feelings that you said in the beginning when you were talking about that, all of them, right? All of them. I felt like a cancer. I felt worthless. I felt like I was the problem. I felt like I couldn't have that conversation with anybody because no one would understand. No one would get what I've been through. And the complication of having childhood trauma on top of it just made it even more complex. And that's part of the reason that I focus so heavily on the civilian side of suicide, is because I think so many people come into the military with trauma and don't even know it, don't even realize that they've been through something that has forced them to fear for their life, or fear for their own safety, or close themselves off because, whatever triggers. But like that fundamentally matched with the military just increases your chances of suicide. And the conversations that we've had in the military about suicide my entire career have been worthless. They've been meaningless, because it's, an E5 gets the presentation the night before and they say, like, hey, you got to teach this suicide prevention or suicide awareness class tomorrow. And what does he do? He reads off the slides. And there's no stories. There's no E6s, E7s, O1s, O2s, O3s stepping in front of the soldiers and saying, hey, I've been here, right? I've felt this. I've gone through this. Because so many people have, so many leaders have, but they're unwilling to share because of what you've been told, and whether it was truth or a lie. I imagine it was truth at one point. this idea that it'll ruin your career, because it probably happened to somebody, right? Like it probably didn't come from nowhere, but we need to change that, right? And I took a pretty bold step myself this last year. Um, I wrote my book, and in my book had a deep discussion about my suicide attempt. And I released that book in July. I got offered sniper school in August, and I had to do a psych eval like almost immediately after I dropped my book. So I like dropped my book July 17th, and then I think it was like July 27th or 28th, I had to do my psych eval. And I'm like, well, what am I gonna say? Because like that instant, like the instant they said that, I was like, fuck, what am I gonna say? Like, is this gonna literally impact my career? Is this gonna be the thing? Because I've wanted sniper school for like a decade now. Is this gonna be the thing that they say, nope, can't go? Right. And then here's other things, why you can't go, or why, I don't know. I was legitimately worried. And I was like, well, I'm not speaking for no reason, right? And so let's see what happens. And I did the psyche veil, told him everything. I told him all about where I am, what I've been through, and like the protective factors I've put in place to make sure I don't get there again. Building myself up and what I've had to do. And like I told him about the book, 100% honest. I was approved. Went to sniper school, passed, got everything done.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And I don't know what I was more excited for, passing sniper school or realizing that that was not the truth, and recognizing that like you can share these things, right? But here's how, right? Like, cause I went through the ACE suicide intervention course for the military recently as well. It's like they talk about risk factors and they talk about protective factors. If you have too many risk factors or protective factors, they're probably not going to send you, right? And so if you're actively getting help, if you're actively getting support, if you're actively open about, hey, I have a problem and I'm going to find solutions, they want you to do that, right? There's an emphasis now on that protective factor situation rather than in the past of saying like, hey, if you go to a therapist, like your career's over, right? Because realistically, like that's HIPAA. Like they shouldn't even know about that. Unless there's cause for them to know about it. But it's quite relieving to see that, and especially with the Sergeant Major of the Army coming out recently and talking about it. There were, I think, 3 cases in the last like decade of people having their security clearance revoked, and due to mental health, and it was because of like very specific reasons. But it's just not the case of what we were told early on in our career, that if you go seek help for mental health or PTSD or trauma or any such thing, like it's not going to ruin your career by the book. Now, from what I've seen, it can ruin your career like interpersonally, how you respond with it, how others respond to it. So I think there's still, the stigma's not gone away, but in the environment of the military, the stigma exists within people, right? It exists within how they interact with you. And I've seen it myself with how I express my story. Like I have different relationships now than I had before because people found out what I've been through, and what I've talked about. And for me, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people are really actively interested and care about what I have to share. But that hasn't always been the case. If I would have started sharing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, would have been a different story, especially in my unit, because we had 4 guys commit suicide after our 2019 deployment. Leadership was one of the biggest things that came out, from that situation. And so it's it's so heavily set upon leadership to solve this problem. And I can only hope in the future that people take it seriously, and especially in a time of peace where things can start to get brushed under the rug because, you know, we're not in that same situation anymore. And so we don't have the same problems to worry about, but trauma's trauma. And we don't need to be at war to have soldiers that have been through trauma. And that's kind of my focus, is understanding that there's a whole world of trauma out there. There's a whole world of PTSD that has happened to people. And, is it always going to be the harrowing tales of, the things like you have been through? No, but that doesn't negate the fact that people are struggling. And so we need to reconsider how we actually look at how we manage people, how we work with people, how we open up communication, and how we allow people to engage in an environment. And will that look softer than it did 20 years ago? Maybe, but guess what? Like, we're not at war with like two different factions in the world. We're at home,
Yeah.
and we need to be able to say, we can turn the light switch off of, is it the mission or the men? And right now we need to fucking focus on the men, and women, obviously. But like, when do we turn that switch on and off? I think it needs to be more of an engaged question with leadership of like, when are you supposed to care about the men? Because historically, you guys only care about the mission. And it's an important question for leadership to ask. And I don't know who's going to ask that,
But there's when I've gone down this journey, I committed to doing any type of treatment that I could come across that I could possibly tell somebody about. Objective Zero has given me a little platform to have a little following, and so I was actually had this procedure done just recently called the SGB, the stellar ganglion block injection.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, life changing. Um, so there's seen these doctors up in Annapolis, both veterans, both served like 30 plus years. One did like his last 9 years as a SEAL. The other one was a SF for a long time, and was also the Olympic swim team doctor. So they are focused. They have this organization. It's ROSM, but they focus on regenerative healing, different type of procedures that the VA is not, focused on.
Hasn't improved yet.
Yeah, like so, the stem cell or the blood, where they recirculate your blood and inject your same blood back into certain areas, just more pure oxygen or whatever it is they do.
Yeah.
But they're involved in that, and I went up there, and on the one day I got injected on the right side of my neck. I got they inject between the C4 and the C6, just a mild sedative. And then the following day they do on the left side. And when I went in, they said, "Well, what do you hope to feel? Hope to have happen after this?" I'm like, I don't even know, man. That's all I know is trauma. I mean, I remember my trauma started before I even went to school. My dad went to prison when I was 5. Before I went to school. My best friend accidentally shot himself in the 4th grade, and then my uncle hung himself in the 7th grade. It's like, all I knew is trauma. I was molested at 4. You just name it. It just kept happening. So I didn't know. I always felt like I was walking on eggshells. I never felt like I belonged because my mom and dad divorced after they had me. So then I always felt like I was a tool being pulled back and forth, used over, child support, fighting over time. I joined the military to to die. You know, that was my way of getting out of there, because it was so miserable that I had to get away. And yeah, man, it's been it's just gonna take a change amongst everything. You know, starting with new procedures, new practices, try new stuff. We have been doing the same shit for the last 100 freaking years, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Why are we still doing the same shit? If you run into a wall 5 times and it hurts all 5 times, then you're just gonna keep running into the wall, or are you gonna take a step to the right and open up the door and try a different way? I mean, come on, we know these are procedures out here that are working, and nobody wants to try them out. The VA's approved to pay for the SGB, but most of them don't even know that, because they don't, you know, the information doesn't get passed down like it does in the military.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if they will get you through there, they force you to go through all of their therapy first, which is weeks of reliving the trauma. There's no point in reliving the trauma. Like, you break a limb, you get put in a cast, you don't need to sit there and talk about exactly how you broke your leg every single time. No, you went and you got your leg fixed, you got a cast on, it's healed. You know, let's focus on what we can do to improve you. Let's focus on what we can do to fix the problem, and trying these new procedures. When I got that SGB, I was in tears, man. It hit me so hard within minutes. Like, and it's not a drug. Like, there's no high off of it. It's not like taking, you know, the microdosing on, or any. There's no side effect. There's no addiction possibilities. Like, I could take that syringe and sink it in my leg and shoot the whole thing in my leg, and all it's going to do is leave a little numb spot in your leg. And I was in and out within 30 minutes. And within minutes of the injection, like, I could feel like I felt like I could breathe. I started having feelings again, like just everything, like the tingling down through my body. Like, it was so overwhelming that I started breaking down. And he looked over at me. He's like, "You'd be amazed that it's more common than you'd think." He goes, "I see it all the time." So if we would just give like, our soldiers coming back from a combat deployment, and they just provided this, it resets the fight or flight. The ganglion nervous system is what triggers that fight or flight, slows down time, makes the sound. You know, that's what that does. And us people that have had untreated trauma stacked on, you know, childhood trauma, combat trauma, sexual trauma, whatever, we live in that fight or flight. We don't even know it, but because it's never been treated and we've lived with this all of our lives, that we're constantly in the fight or flight. That's why we're always on edge. Why we get, you know, pissed off all the time. That's why we're scanning everybody, always planning our way out, a way to protect ourselves, because that's what we had to do our entire lives to survive.
Right.
So quit beating ourselves up, change how we look at things, be willing to say, okay, we messed up, let's try something different. But I mean, it changed my whole perspective of how I look at things. Right. It allowed me to have a situation happen, and instead of me just getting ramped up and ready to fight, it allowed me to take a step back, and I'm like, all right, let me think about this. Let me see it from their side. Let me go from my side again. And I was actually able to process something. And I'm like, man, it's crazy. Like, since I've gotten that injection, the things that I've been able to accomplish in life has been unreal, because I've actually been able to focus. My kids want to hang out with me. I mean, my God, my daughter just turned 13 and my son's freaking turning 15. What teenage kids wants to hang out with their dad, especially the one that's been an asshole for the last freaking, you know, forever. Yeah. So when your wife and your kids can say that they see a difference and they want to be around you, man, that's a feeling that is like, I look forward to waking up every day. And that it wasn't like that. Um, and now, I mean, this just happened in October. So $800 per side. And it literally changed my life. I sleep better. The nightmares are far, far less likely. I mean, I can't tell you really. It's been crazy. And the thing is like, it's there. They know it's there. Why aren't we using it? Same thing with the OZ app. The military knows it's there. The freaking top people know about it. Why does every freaking person in the military not have the OZ app on their phone? It is a new version of the ACE card. It's a new virtual version, except for instead of just having an ACE card, which is, oh, act, care, and escort, I got this card. Don't worry, it's in my pocket. I'll make sure I have it. They used to do that for years. And if you didn't have it, you get the shit smoked out of you. And here, this is a free tool. It's anonymous. It also has resources on there. Like, why are they not telling everybody about it? That's what it's going to take is our leaders that are sergeant majors, battalion commanders, go out there and tell them about it. Hey, first freaking battalion, first company that has every one of their men on the OZ app gets a 4-day weekend. Guess what? There you go. You just gave your company a 4-day weekend, which is going to boost morale, and you got everybody on the app. So now they actually have this tool. Their family members have the tool. So now their family members see an issue. They can reach out to somebody on the app and say, hey, my husband's having something going on. And I need help. Come help. That's how we fix this problem. We come together, not sit there and act like there's nothing wrong. I was at the AUSA conference in our military times or Army times or whatever. Asked some sergeant majors if our freaking lower enlisted trusted our leadership to come forward with them and tell them that there's an issue. And he said, oh, no, there's no problem with that at all. All of our military is comfortable talking to our leadership. I told him, I said, that right there, I said, that's the problem. I said, keep that mindset and you're going to keep getting people killed. I said, because people don't trust going and talking to you.
Yep.
And if you really believe that, man, you just need to bend on over and run full steam in that wall, because we wouldn't be having people kill themselves if they really trusted everybody around them and felt that the leadership cared.
Yep.
And they had that open conversation, that open door to converse and talk about these problems.
Yeah.
The difference they would see.
Open door policies have existed since the fucking beginning of open door policies, and guess what? They still don't work.
Yeah.
An open door policy only works as much as the person that offers it allows it to happen, right? If I have an open door policy and you come in and tell me something and I get upset, you're probably never going to come back.
They'll never come back. Never.
Yeah. And
so same with every other soldier that sees it happen.
And it's such a complicated issue because, imagine if you were a leader, that went through a lot of the same things that you went through, right? You handled it one way, but what if they handled it another? And rather than getting help, they had the reactive nature, functioning within their leadership. And so, a lot of the leaders that I've seen throughout the years, throughout the last decade and a half of me being in the military, some of the older leadership that have been through 2003, 2004, 2005, some of the hard years of the war, it showed. I'm sure we can all, anyone who's ever known any veterans or been around any significant number of military community knows that there's guys out there that they don't think, they react. And it becomes a really complicated issue of being like, well, he's a bad leader. Like, maybe he also might have severe trauma and severe TBI and severe PTSD, and he doesn't even know. And so, like, how do you, broaching a conversation like that with someone like that? So it becomes remarkably uncomfortable, to try and to try and be lower enlisted and tell a sergeant major that he might have this problem, or a first sergeant or an E7, right? A lot of the E7s that I've seen in my career, they've probably had PTSD, and whether they knew it or not, I don't know. But like it's a complex issue, and it's something that, if sergeant majors are thinking they don't have any fucking problems, like that's just not a realistic idea. I like thinking realistically, right? I know for a fact that there's going to be bad leaders, right? There's going to be good leaders. And on the spectrum, there's going to be a lot of people in between. And there's going to be people that have trauma, that don't have trauma. There's people that understand trauma and don't understand trauma, regardless of how educated we make them, right? There are people that are going to not understand trauma, even if we educate them on it. And so if they become leaders, if those people below them do not have an outlet to go to, right? I really am kind of looking at, my experience and seeing that you can have a company, right? And you look at the chain of command, and I think the chain of command is a very important thing in the mission. But to the men, the chain of command can be the most destructive thing in their lives. And if they don't have an outlet to go to and say, hey, my chain of command just said this, is that right? Like hey, if you go to that therapy appointment, it will ruin your career. If they have nowhere to go and ask that question of like, is this the right answer? Then their chain of command just created the same situation that you went through or I went through, because our
toxic environment,
our future like development of our lives is based on what we learn. And if that's something that we learn, then we physically learned that we need to suck it up. And that doesn't work for the human body, right? However much you want to tell yourself in your mind that you need to suck it up, guess what? It doesn't fucking work. Eventually that shit comes out. And so if that's what you're learning, if that's, the kind of environment that you're stuck in, I mean, it fucking destroys people, and it destroys units. I've watched it. And so it's a remarkably complicated situation. Obviously the VA is not going to be able to manage everything, because they are such complicated issues. The VA tries, but obviously there's, it's an organization, right? And with an organization, it's bureaucratic. So it's not going to solve every problem. But I think it's important to understand that Objective Zero is out there, and it fits, kind of like myself. Like, I'm not a therapist. I don't pretend to be. I don't want to be. I'm a mental health coach. And I think what happens where people find me the most is that people have bad experiences with therapy. They have stigmas about therapy. They have stigmas about the mental health profession, or the professions in general. And so rather than attempt to go there or go into a situation where they'll get medicated, right? Like you, they come to me in a capacity that is, I'm far more focused on solving the problem and understanding the problem. We do dig into the traumas, but I think we do it in a way where it's, foundational, right? I'm not just making you feel for feeling's sake, right? We attack that problem when you're ready to attack that problem and work through that problem. And so people find me because they won't go anywhere else. And so I think Objective Zero is kind of in the same place, where the Army's building a place for people now. The VA has built a place for people, but not everybody goes there, right? And so Objective Zero is this platform, this app. It's certainly something I'm gonna share with my soldiers, that people that don't have anywhere else to go in that system, or those systems, or a family, where they can find you guys. And I think that's an incredible thing. Can you, how big is Objective Zero? Do you have like numbers on it? Like how many ambassadors do you guys have? Like, what is it looking like now?
Oh man, ambassadors that are trained. Honestly, since the pull out of Afghanistan, our numbers started. They were jumping and changing so dramatically that it was just overwhelming for me to try to keep up with. But just the numbers the year prior that we had 10,000, over 10,700 people join the app just the year prior to that. And this past year was on pace with that, matching that until Afghanistan. And then we were having days double, triple our numbers. Yeah. So it's crazy. I mean, we got a couple thousand, probably 4,000 or 5,000 or so, maybe trained ambassadors. We're worldwide, all 50 states. I'll say it was like 28 countries or something like that, and our things now is we're setting up to white label our app. So if you are in an organization, and like say if you have a program where you have a group of veterans or soldiers, or service members come through, and to get help, like Save a Warrior, Mighty Oaks, Sparta, those type of programs. Well, a lot of them are failing at their continuous care. They are having all these people, they're pushing all these people through the system. Well, it's not the program that's saving the lives. It's the relationships and the bonds being built during those programs. And our platform is perfect for that type of thing, because it now allows every one of those people on there to basically, they could white label the app, they can take the app, they put their name on it, and put all the information they want on there. And then anybody that goes through the program, family members of those that go through, people in the community, they can have there and start building, and keeping contact with people that go through, having that direct line where somebody can just get on an app and shoot a message and, throw a text in the patrol base. And then, that way the first one available that clicks on it now has you in there, on their phone. And, you could even have continuous education. So you'd be able to track to see if, all right, these people went through the program. Are they going through? Are they doing their daily check-ins that we're sending out? Are they giving their daily ratings? Are they doing their meditations? There's all kinds of ways of just keeping them involved and getting the community involved. Because you think about it, if every one of those people that go through, if you give their spouses, their kids, their parents, their brothers and sisters, they all have a link. They can download the app, because a kid's going to see their parent going through a spiral. And if they have a landline where they get on, hey, all right, I don't know who to talk to, but my dad's freaking out. I don't know what's going on, but something's wrong with him. I need help. Who can help me? That quick. Now you have somebody there on their way to the house to help out. That's how we fix this stuff. We come together as a community and we start working. But that's how we plan, basically to fund the app. Because currently, last year we're expecting about 30 to 35,000, and then progresses every year about 5 to 10,000, depending on what our numbers are and how much it's being used. Because we said from the beginning that we would never charge anybody a dime. We would not have the app full of advertisements and sales garbage. That we were trying to make a one-stop shop where you could come, get help anonymously, find resources, whatever it is that you need, mental health stuff, yoga, connecting within the community. If you need a service dog, there's programs on there for that. Hunting trips, I mean, you name it. Martial arts studios that, will give veterans free stuff, gym memberships. It's like we're just trying to collect all the data from as many people as we can that we know is real, legit, and filtered. And then when we started this, there was over 40,000 veteran nonprofits.
Yeah. It's
And I
crazy.
mean, how many of those are actually veterans? How many of those are actually doing something and not just lining their pockets? You know, we gave this app away. We were told this app was worth billions. We gave it away. I don't get nothing from this. I do all this because I care. I haven't made a dime from them. And I told them that I would never take a dime from them. And that's how it's going to be. You know, my patent, my phone case, that's how I plan on making money. Me speaking, that's how I plan on making my money. You know, by me saving lives, me giving, nobody should ever have to pay to get their life back. People say there's apps out there like ours, but you got to pay for it. How shitty is that going to be when you're like, man, hey man, I'm about to kill myself. Beep, beep, beep. You need to add $7.99 or you're out of minutes. Oh shit. I mean, so we're just trying to build it all, wipe out the garbage and get the best of the best, because that's what we all deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hard, you know, I look at what I do, and I'm a mental health coach by trade. This is my full-time job. The podcast here is obviously kind of to give people something that's free. I run a text platform that's daily inspirational message every day. When I remember, you know, there's days like I think I might have, no, I think I did. There's every once in a while I forget a day, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm CEO here, and it's tough. The free conversation is different for me because I have been doing this for 2 years, and I would love to give away what I do for free. But then what do I have? I've got a family that would not have income. You know, I would have nothing, right? And I wouldn't have a business that would be profitable. I wouldn't be able to pay for that text platform because my business brings in the money that allows me to pay for that. That's a loss for me. That text platform has 1,700 people on it right now, and it's functioning at a loss. Like I don't make money on that. Now I sell my coaching through it every once in a while. I'll throw up like hey, I've got slots available. But I'm not a suicide hotline, right? I'm not an emergency contact. I'm a mental health coach. And if you want to get your life back on track, that's what I offer. You know, and it's a difficult conversation because I get these comments every once in a while. I get these messages every once in a while of like, if you actually cared, you would do it for free. I had a DM the other day, literally this person giving me all of this information about like, if you really cared, you would do it for free. And it was she wrote me a book, and I'm like, I understand, but I'm not a fucking nonprofit. I'm a human being that is, you know, I'm CEO, I'm videographer, I'm editor, I'm writer. I have all of these different titles in my business doing all of these different things. And guess what? I'm still not making that much money. Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to provide what I know to be good information. I'm trying to provide what I can provide. And if people want something for free, go somewhere else. I would love to give it away. And I give away my content for free. I give away my podcast for free. I give away my text messages for free. You know, my email list is free. Like I give away everything that I possibly can for free. And I think it's an interesting conversation of looking at what we give away for free and people not really understanding how to use something that is free compared to something that they actually have to buy into. And I think what you guys are doing is so important and so fundamental, but I'm curious, like, do you see the same people using what you have and not finding resources or not buying into what you guys are trying to help them with? Like, you know, I'm always curious about that. What do you think?
we haven't lost anybody that I'm aware of that's used the app yet. So I mean, there have been cases where we did have one that reached out and told the lady that, hey, I just wanted somebody to know that I was ending it, so that way somebody could find me. And the person was able to put two and two together who it was and realize that, oh man, this person's in my unit. Oh my God, I need to reach out to my chain of command, and thank God, get everything in play, and saved the guy's life. And they said that he was not far from not making it. So and he's doing well now. Like sometimes they just need that. They just need somebody who's willing to listen to them and willing to hear them, and just tell them that it's okay to not, not be okay. That's fine. That's normal. You're not supposed to be okay with losing friends and going through and seeing all this stuff. That's not normal. If you're okay with that, and that's the problem. What's not okay is when you put on that front that you're completely okay, and that you think that it's going to ruin you, or it's dangerous, or you should be ashamed or embarrassed to ask for help. That's what's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
You should never feel that way, because look, everybody has a story. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've been through. You have a story. You might not know it now, but heck, I look back and, I clear back to my best friend who killed himself in the 4th grade. Like that right there changed my whole life of how I looked at things. Because at that point on, I didn't let the petty bullcrap. Well, if you're going to hang out with him, then I ain't going to. At that point, I didn't care who you were. If I liked you, I just treated everybody the same. I treated everybody with respect, and that seemed to get me a lot further in the thing. So, be proud of your story. Don't be ashamed of it. Our stories are what's going to change lives. Somebody else out there is sitting in a closet with a bottle in their hand, trying to figure it out, what to do, how to get through it. Guess what? Doctors, they read a book on how you should possibly treat somebody. They don't know unless they've actually lived it. But this person over here has been raped. They're going to know how they survived through that situation. So that person is going to be able to give them guidance. Somebody who's been through combat, watched their friend die, or found a friend that died by suicide. The person that's lived that and done that, they're going to be the ones that's going to be able to walk you through it. The doctors, they can help give us guidance. They can help a little, but the only people that really know and can really, really help and work it through it is peers, the ones who've lived it, breathed it, tasted it, and been down that dark hole and found their way out. So that's the thing. People need to be easy on themselves and be proud of what they've survived. Everybody has their own story. Quit comparing themselves to each other, and just look at what it is that you've continued to fight through, and you've continued to make it, and you are here today. That's all that matters. It don't matter if you almost quit, but you didn't. You're here today, and that's the thing. It's important to remember, and that you have a purpose, and nobody else can do that purpose better than you.
Yeah, Justin, I mean, you've got it's funny because you said in the early on, you were like, I didn't feel like I had a story to tell. And like I'm sitting here like, fuck, like that's a hell of a story, right? Like if you don't someday write a book about what you've been through, I will be 100% upset with you, right? So just keep that in mind. You need to start thinking about that, because
it's already in the works.
Good. And if you need help with that, let me know, because I've done that before. So let me know
absolutely.
if there's anything I can help you with. That's that needs to be a book. You need to have a book, not for you, but well, yeah, for you and for other people. Because I think it needs to be mutually beneficial. For you, it needs to be your story written out and memorialized in what you're trying to accomplish. And then for other people to see what can be overcome, what can be understood.
Yeah.
And if no matter where you are personally in your journey and of fully understanding these things that you've been through, quite frankly, you've been through a lot, right? From a young age to now. It's a lifelong, and I've been through my own fair share. It's a lifelong journey of understanding, of developing the perspective around the things that you've been through. And I think it's important for people to realize that, right? Like my first book is in many ways unfinished. Like I wrote my book at 31, understanding what I understood, but I know that 27 years from now, I'm going to look back at that book and realize that's not how life is. Or I would love to change this, right? And, maybe I'll change the edition, like have a new edition or something like that. But the reality is that when we memorialize and we tell our stories, if we continue to tell our stories the same way that we felt in the moment, we never really get through them. We never really understand them and build the perspective around them. Because if you tell the story how you felt it at 5 years old or 6 years old, and you never create a mature understanding of that story at 32 years old, which I'm going to be soon, you're not solving any problems, right? If you're a combat veteran out there listening to this right now, and you are looking at your tour and you're looking at the traumatic thing that happened to you at 19 years old in Iraq or Afghanistan, and you tell it the same way you've told it for, 19 years, 20 years, 10 years, 3 years, what can you change? How can you understand that story from a different perspective? Because if you say it the same way, you're not maturing. You're living with the same story, right? And it's not what happened that changes. It's how you perceive it that needs to change. That's the important thing, I think, in all of this. And certainly with you, I imagine that as you tell this story every single time, you're thinking about it and you're like, wow, you know what? I never realized that little detail, because someone like me asked you a question, is like, what about that? And then you're like, oh, fuck. Yeah. I never thought about it that way. And, and every time you tell that story, it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit more mature. It's a little bit more understanding, or maybe it's a little bit harder, right? You realize that there's emotion there that you've never processed, and you come back to it and you're like, that's right. That one hurt. Right. And I'm sure that happens, and that's necessary, because I think, it's not about exposure. It's not exposure therapy. I don't think exposure therapy really fundamentally does what people think it does. It's I think understanding or perspective therapy in many regards. Is like you are starting to look at your story in a way that you can functionally justify where you've gone with it, where you've taken it. And it's a testament to you, Justin, for everything that you've been through to where you are now, that you have so much purpose in your life. And to hear, the genuine, like the genuine joy that you shared about like having your kids want to be around you and your wife, and that, man, that's beautiful. Like that, I've felt that, right? Like I'm feeling that now for you, because that's just so powerful, right? That is even possible after all that you've been through, all that I've been through. And we look at our stories and we realize like the best is coming if you build it. The best is here if you're willing to, put down these stories of destruction and pick up these stories as ways to build yourself up, to carry yourself forward, to realize your own strength and your own aptitude, for your ability to overcome, like you've done it, and you're still doing it. You're still very much in the process. And so am I. And so is everybody else that's probably listening to this podcast. But the fact that people like you exist is fucking awesome to me, because like the story that you've told me, and the story that people are going to listen to and watch, with you here, is going to live for a very long time. The internet, anything on the internet never dies. And so this is something that people are going to see and are going to realize just how someone's going to take something from this. I know it, right? Whether it's going to Objective Zero on the app and connecting with that, whether it's just listening to your story and realizing just how important it is, all of what you've said. Maybe someone will go get the stellate ganglion block, and that will change their life, and they'll look at you and be like, Justin Miller's the guy that told me about this. Someone will take something from this, and that, you've done it, right? Like that was you, right? And that's a powerful thing. I look at my life and I realize, at 25 years old, just under 7 years ago, I might not be here, which means that I never would have found you. I never would have given this experience that we've had here a chance to, be shown to people, to be shared with people. And who knows where this could go. Someone could, you could become a huge author someday with your book, get a huge book deal or something like that. And people start finding this episode and start listening to this, like, oh man, this was him before his book. And then they connect with you like, oh, this was him after his book, like, who knows where this can go. And so, I look at that, and that was a millimeter. A millimeter was all the difference between me and never having the experience of things like this and connecting with genuine people that are trying to make a difference in the community. And it's a big thing. It's a big thing to ponder, of just how close we were. Isn't it?
It is. And it's, we got to learn to be gentle on ourselves. Probably one of the most healing things for me, that I've gone through is learning my parents' past. Learning their history opened my eyes, because then I'm like, holy shit, my dad wasn't trying to be a piece of shit. My dad just didn't have any guidance. My dad was doing what he thought he was doing best. He was trying to be a good dad, and that has given me an appreciation for my parents, because I realized just how much shit my parents survived to get where I'm at. And my parents came from the streets. I mean, my grandparents came from overseas, and then both of them joined the military to serve their country and barely speak English, and won't even, grandfather wouldn't even tell people where he was from. He'd say he's American. That's it. He wouldn't tell people. And they came from nothing. And now I look at where I'm at, and I'm like, you know what? If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for my parents, if they would have quit, if I would have quit, OZ wouldn't have happened. You just never know when you step around that corner and your life is going to change. You might find the love of your life. You might step over $1 million check. Idea pops into your head that changes how the world works. Just got to learn to grow. Learn that we're not who we were yesterday. That every day we're going to be different. Learn to look at all leadership, good and bad, and learn from it. I had a great leader that asked me in recruiting, well, what's your leader teaching? Nothing. He sucks. He's a piece of shit, and he can't teach me nothing. Well, there you are. Then you have closed the door. You have stopped wanting to develop. If you want to develop and you want to become the best leader, you're going to look at him and you're going to see what to do and what not to do. That's how we got to do. We got to look at things, look at the good and the bad, and learn from them both. And just keep on talking and bouncing and sharing. And like I said, it's going to take us coming together. You didn't have to directly serve spouses, kids, DoD employees, people that have any people of service, anybody that's actually served another community. It's going to take us to continue to come together and bridge those gaps. And we're Americans. We are the baddest country in the world. Like, why are we tearing ourselves apart? Like, come on.
Right.
We managed to survive all of the shit that we've been through, and we still have our heads up high. Like, come on, let's come together. We've survived combat. We made it back. We didn't do it by ourselves. No, we did it with a freaking brigade, with a freaking the military all working as one to accomplish a mission. Yep. Guess what? Now we have a mission to take care of the ones that we promised that we would do everything in our power to take care of them if they went and they did the dirty work that nobody else wanted to do. We owe it to ourselves. We got to do it, man. And that's the thing, is we just got to keep on pushing it and reminding everybody that we're worth it. You're worth it. You're enough. Everybody out there, they deserve it. And they need to be proud of themselves. And find me on social media. I don't care. My phone's always going off. I'm surprised my wife hasn't freaking buried it out in the woods somewhere, because it goes off more than the app does.
Yeah. Mine too.
But it's because I care. And I spoke up in Massachusetts. The guy, talked to him for he listened to my story. I spoke to 2 auditoriums completely packed. Each one had over 1,000, 1,500 plus in it. And then I talked to the guy for 2 minutes in the office. Next time, and I get a call. Hey, Sergeant Miller, I figured I owe you the last call before I finish this. I owed it to you to figure out and see what you had to say. Him and I are still friends today. He's still here and he's thriving. So, reach out. Don't be ashamed of shit. I've been in my low point. I've been on my knees crying. I've been in the shower crying, just asking God what's going on. I need help. And you know what? Somebody always shows up. And it's always somebody who gives a shit. That's been watching from the sidelines that I just didn't even notice was there, but they've been there all along. So take them blinders off and realize your importance.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk for 6 hours.
Probably.
So we should probably call it a day, because I do have to get going and do more stuff. But let's close this out. I mean, this has been an awesome episode. You're an incredible human being. Let me just say that. I'm honored to have you on the podcast, and I can't wait to see where you go. Once you write that book, let me know, because I want to have you back on and talk about it. It's just there's not many episodes where I just listen, and I think you spoke for probably 30, 40 minutes about what you've been through, and it's mind blowing, incredible. And I have so much respect for you, for your ability to just share and be honest. It definitely something that I, connect a lot with, because that's a lot of what my story is about is also being honest, because I lied to myself for so long. So a lot of respect for you, Justin. I appreciate you coming on. But before we close this out, I got to ask you the question that I know you've been thinking about. And you've dropped so much wisdom in this episode. So it's at this point, what is it? Right. But here it is. If there was a message you could leave the world, what would it be?
Focus more on putting a smile on somebody's face every day and pointing out all the negatives. Quit worrying about the negatives. Focus more on how we can make things better. And be gentle with ourselves and remind ourselves of how much we're worth. Life is this freaking short. We don't need to make it any shorter. So
100%. I love it. Well, if you've just why don't you tell them what's the best way to find you? Like what social media are you on the most? Well, where can they find you?
Email probably is best to get a guaranteed connection at justinobjectivezero.org. But I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you need a speaker, once I'm here. I go speak to units. I'll speak wherever, because I know if it's not me sharing my story, then who is? So.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I get those links down in the description below. So if you're looking to connect with Justin, we'll make it happen. Check the description. Again, thank you. This was I love episodes like this. I love I started off being like, you know what, I need to do like 45-minute podcasts, and then I just can't do under an hour and a half, it seems like. So this is perfect. When I have good people on, I talk longer, which I love because I like to listen. So Justin, thank you for coming on today, and I have a feeling we're gonna be connecting more in the future. So
hell yeah, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for reminding me of my worth too. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, if you've listened for this long, I know you are an awesome fan. So I want to make sure you know that I appreciate you. So thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Dylan Experience, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.